What is good, everybody? Welcome to another Gold Standard podcast production. I'm Rob Stats Guerrera. He is Levin Black. Levin, it's May the 4th. May the 4th be with you.
Yeah, I was going to catch you off guard by wishing you that, but then I had a show idea, so I had to kind of tip my hand in our lead up to the show.
Very excited today. This is the best idea that Levin has ever had. We are going to match 49ers players, coaches, etc. with characters from Star Wars. I can't wait to do it because I love both, obviously. Before we get to that, I want to remind you, please rate, review, and follow the Gold Standard Podcast Network. We always say if you leave a review, we will read it on the show. We were trying to get our star rating up since I was laid off by SB Nation in January. This one comes from Gasman 2013. Great podcast for 49ers fans, 5 stars. Passionate yet also realistic takes on all things 49ers. Keep up the great work. Thank you very much, Gasman 2013. Obviously, he's talking about me.
Yeah, you're the reasoned one on this network.
Yes.
It's not that you're on 4 days a week and you kind of brought in co-hosts for each one of those days. It's reason, other than I guess Grant is kind of out that window now. The Wednesday show should be called Twinsies.
That's just mean. I keep Grant in line. Come on now.
Yeah, I know you saw my comment. You just wouldn't show it yesterday.
Darn, that's a shame.
Yeah, I know you saw it because you posted the one directly beneath mine, and I was like, I know darn well he saw my comment.
Yeah, that's.
I'm gonna say it because I think you should get peer pressure from all our listeners. I want Rob and Grant to make a bet on something, and the loser has to change their hairstyle because they have the exact same hairstyle.
That's true, and we have talked about it. I'd be willing to do it. I would definitely be willing to do it. I don't know if Grant would. He has to look a lot more professional than I do, but I can bring it up.
You don't necessarily have to go crazy like, oh, a loser has to have a mullet or something unprofessional, but
right.
You just can't do the whole short hair, cut down the sides, and then spiked in the front.
So quick thing really fast before we get to the Star Wars portion. I am going to be hosting on ESPN radio this weekend. And for some reason in my mind, I have to get a haircut before I do it. And it doesn't make any sense at all. It's radio, but for some reason in my head, I'm like, you have to get your haircut before you go into that Bristol campus. And I don't know.
You should show up in a suit, because what happens if you show up and they're like, hey, we need somebody on TV real quick. We're in an emergency.
Hey, you never know. But it's weird. It's like, when you're driving around looking for something and you turn down the radio, like it's not really related. One shouldn't affect the other, but for some reason, I got to go get a haircut today.
I've probably gotten more haircuts in the last year than any other year in my life.
Why?
I've always been somebody that I would get a haircut and then I would go like a full year and just let it grow, and I would have long hair, and then I would get it chopped off. Like even when I was a kid, that's what my parents would do. I would have my hair, and then like normally right around the holidays, I would have a buzz cut, and then it would grow out all year, and then I would have a buzz cut.
We need some pictures of young Levin for the Gold Standard social medias, which, by the way, we're on Instagram now at GSN 49ers, and we're on Facebook as well. So search for Gold Standard 49ers, and our page will pop right up. All right, without further ado, let's get to it. It's May the 4th. It's Star Wars Day. If you don't like Star Wars, I don't care. Turn the episode off. Star Wars is great. My son finally made it through all the movies, so he's been loving today, and we're going to compare 49ers members of the organization to Star Wars characters. I have about 10, give or take. Levin has fewer, but he says he's going to be a stickler. So I will give you first pick, Levin. What do you got?
Well, before we get into it, are the new movies any good?
Yeah, I have no problem with them. They're fine. They're not my favorites, but I don't hate them.
They're shit.
Come on.
They took a giant pile of crap on the first 6 movies. They ruined the first 6 movies. So to me, I have to kind of pretend like those don't, because the whole saga was Anakin.
Yes.
The whole saga was about Anakin, and
Correct.
These most recent ones said, "Oh, ha ha ha! The Skywalkers don't matter. It's actually the Palpatines."
Spoiler alert.
Oh yes. Well, so it just the new ones ruined the first one. So I pretend I'll probably never watch them again. I watched each one of them, I think, twice, and just first time Okay. And then second time is like, is it any better? Nope. It still craps on the originals.
I don't know why you think that. But anyway, let's get into some actual football talk and maybe that'll come up in the course of the conversation. So, all right, first one with you, matching Star Wars characters to 49ers characters.
All right. So the first one, I'm going to just get it out of the way because I've reused this character later, but this one is just too perfect and timely to not use. And that's what is Darth Vader most famous for? What's his most famous move?
Most famous move?
Yeah,
The Luke, I am your father?
No, the choke.
Oh, the choke, the force choke.
So he's Trent
okay.
Williams. Trent Williams, because the Cowboys game when he choke slams the guy. Have you forgotten that already?
I totally
After the game, remember there was like that big blow up and he walks up and grabs the guy and choke slams him?
Oh, yes. Yes, now I do. All right. That was definitely a different angle than I thought you were going to go.
First thought I was like, okay, who's Vader? I got to figure out who's Vader. What's something that signifies Vader that's truly just him? And I was like, the chokehold. Oh, well, that one's obvious. But yeah, I reused Vader later because Trent Williams, attitude-wise, I don't think he really truly fits the Vader.
Yeah, that's not where I went with Vader or Trent Williams, although I did pick both of those. I forgot about that choke by Trent. Yeah,
apparently.
That's the wrong dude to pick a fight with. Like, my God, what are we thinking?
Is he at the top of the list in terms of 49ers? Like, who would you least want to fight?
100% Trent Williams. He's huge and he's athletic like you can't believe. That is not a combination for somebody you want to fight.
Right. I think I would agree that it's Trent. I think second's probably Kittle, just because the dude is like ripped and certainly gets into like kind of this beast type of mentality when he's actually got adrenaline going and all that. But Trent, I think's just a different level.
Yeah, I don't want to face. I want no part of that. I actually went a different way with Vader, and I think this is going to make you mad, and it's probably going to make a lot of people mad. If you're watching on the YouTube, you can see it. I went with Jake Moody, and here's why. Everybody hates Vader, right? At first, we all hate Vader when you're first introduced to him. And then what happens? Ultimately, through an act of goodwill, through doing a good deed, he is redeemed. He becomes a Force ghost. He's there at the end of the movie. He is redeemed. That's Jake Moody. Everybody hates the Jake Moody pick right now, right? But guess what? If he starts kicking and winning games and making clutch kicks, we're all going to love him. He will be redeemed in our eyes. So to me, I went Vader, Jake Moody. Is that fair?
No, I don't agree, but I can't give my other Vader pick yet because it works in a kind of a scheme of different characters all fitting together. I went with the whole quarterback room and kind of like who is who, but I do have a kicker pick.
Wait, I don't understand why. What's wrong with my analogy there? It's perfect. It's
because Jake Moody isn't important enough to be Vader.
Well, okay, so that I did struggle with that. That's true. Like, in terms of the overall role, I mean, we saw this team get to a Super
Let's be
Bowl.
honest. If Jake Moody comes in and does well, people will be like, okay, cool. Like it won't be he won't be a star. And I think to be Vader, you kind of have to be a big name.
I will say, like, rookie minicamp is coming up, and he's got like pressure on him. Like if he starts missing kicks, like, oh my, people are going to be coming at him.
There's all kinds of stuff. Like I will say, like I researched a little bit of Jake Moody. I mean, we're not getting into the whole Star Wars thing. We're not really sticking to it. We'll get back to it here. But there was one really alarming stat that really worries me about Jake Moody. And that's that he was horrendous on the road. Did you look at his home road splits?
No.
He only makes like 50% of his kicks on the road. That worries me for pressure because pressure's on you and you need to be able to make kicks on the road. And that worried me.
So Nick Wagner had a really cool piece about this on ESPN.com. I actually put it in 49ers in 5 this morning. Robbie Gould was 9 of 11 on kicks in the final 2 minutes of regulation or overtime as a 49er. And that was tied for the third most in the league in that span. So he was really, really clutch. Can Jake Moody replicate that? Because that's really what it's going to come down to. It's going to
Right.
be, it's not like in the first quarter if he has to kick a 40-yarder. Obviously, you want him to make it, but whatever. But at the end of the game, and obviously in the playoffs, you did feel good about Robbie Gould almost every single time he lined up. And I feel like that's what it's going to come down to for Moody. I didn't know the home road splits. I got to check that out.
Yeah, it kind of worried me. I haven't gotten to delve fully into and have a true synopsis on Jake Moody. I'm kind of waiting for our website to write an article.
It's coming. I swear we're working on it.
But speaking of Robbie Gould, I gave him Yoda.
What?
He's tiny. He's tiny, but important because kicking's important. But he's now gone. But he's a Force ghost because we know he was one of the first calls Jake Moody got. So he's still around and having an influence.
Oh my God.
You can't pick Yoda and have some like 6'4" football player being him. It's got to be somebody tiny, and we don't have Trent Taylor anymore or anything like that. Robbie Gould is the small guy, has a really important role because, like you said, he has to be able to make clutch kicks, but he's not actually here anymore. Yet he's still having an effect on the team because he called Jake Moody. I think it felt.
Well, and not only that, he drove from like Chicago to Indianapolis to have dinner with him to help him like prepare for the combine and everything.
Mm-hmm.
So he's still influencing the present. That's a good match by you. I didn't go that way with Yoda. My Yoda pick was, and I know you're going to get on me now after hearing what you just said. I went with Trent Williams for Yoda, and here's why. Everybody knows Yoda is a badass. Nobody messes with Yoda. He's the most powerful. That the duel he had with Palpatine, fantastic, like blew everybody's minds. Super old, wise. Like, to me, Trent Williams matches up, not physically, of course, because Yoda's like 2'1", but everything else about Yoda to me is Trent Williams. He's the master.
You like picked the biggest guy to be.
Right. Well, who was I going to pick? I mean, you know, Yoda's 3 feet shorter than everybody on the Niners, but I went with like ability level. So that's how I matched those two up.
Yeah, I honestly don't think there's a great current player on the team that fits Yoda. I don't really see we have, I think Yoda, there's kind of two things that people mostly identify with Yoda. I guess you could say three. The skill one that you went with, but also his stature, being old, type thing. But then also just being kind of like philosopher, wise. I don't think we have that like elder statesman that's all wise, you know what I mean?
Well, but don't forget,
great sitting there just being a mentor.
When Debo was requesting his trade, he said that Trent Williams kind of talked to him and kind of talked him down a little bit and sort of told him like how negotiations with the 49ers go. So that's kind of like a guidance type thing. I think it works. As usual, I'm 100% correct.
Oh, yes. Because there's a right and wrong when it comes to this.
Clearly, 1,000%. We're talking Star Wars. Of course, there's a 100% right and 100% wrong.
Uh-huh. So before I get, because I don't want to take over, but I kind of have 5 of mine all fit together.
Oh, good Lord.
So I don't want to go there yet. Did you pick an emperor?
Yes, I did. That's actually where I was going to go next. And I feel like this is pretty obvious, right? I mean, if you had to pick an emperor of the 49ers, who are you picking?
Well, I went kind of the mean route. I think you have to be old. You have to be you have to hold a lot of power, but also not be good. So I went John York.
Kind
of mean. I mean, I give him credit for stepping away, but boy, was he terrible. And he, from what I remember, granted, I was a lot younger then. I was high school age when he was truly running things. I remember him kind of being a jerk almost. Like that was kind of the rep where he was kind of very like, hey, I'm the owner. You do what I say type attitude. And then all his picks were terrible and the team fell apart. And so he turned it over to Jed, but I picked John York.
I could see your point, but the emperor never gives up power. So
technically he didn't. Technically, him and Denise are still owners.
Well, that's true. Yeah, that is true. Jed just kind of is the face of that, but they are still the owners. I went with Kyle Shanahan for Palpatine. And here's why. Palpatine is incredibly powerful, right? Great duelist, obviously really good force powers, very good manipulation of people. That's really his specialty, is dealing with people and kind of getting his way behind the scenes, manipulating things. That's Kyle Shanahan, right? His relationship with the players is so good. That's him. Genius play caller, so really powerful. And I think this is key, both can be defeated due to hubris. And I think that Kyle Shanahan has a little of that in him. I mean, he never thinks that he does anything wrong in a game ever. Even that Falcons Super Bowl, he won't admit to one iota of fault in the whole thing. Like, not a single thing. He'll say I wasn't perfect, but he'll never actually say one thing that he did wrong. And the Emperor was done in by hubris. He never thought that Vader was going to turn on him, ever. And all of a sudden, the next thing you know, Vader's picking him up and chucking him down the hole, basically. So I went with Palpatine and Kyle Shanahan.
I can see the logic there. I'll give my Kyle Shanahan, but he's part of the group of 5 that I have that go in unison. So as you could guess, what is Kyle Shanahan always linked to? Can he develop a quarterback? So that's what I went with. I kind of created who's who with the quarterbacks and Kyle Shanahan and all that relationship. So I have Kyle Shanahan being Obi Wan Kenobi, the trainer of everybody, basically. You know what I mean? He trained Anakin, he trained Luke, and then he's still around as a Force ghost, having influence on others. So to me, he's Obi Wan Kenobi, and so now you got to get to all of the other ones, right? So I picked, as Darth Vader, the one that fits most, being Jimmy Garoppolo, the first person with the 49ers that Kyle latched onto and said, this is the promise, this is the promise kid. His metachlorian count is off the charts, from episode 1 and all that stuff. Agrees to train him. And now he's gone to the dark side because he's on the Raiders. So it's just too perfect to have Jimmy as Darth Vader. The guy that used to be the savior and now he's not, but I guess might be the savior because he'll probably crater that whole franchise even more.
Well, here's the thing, though. Anakin is the chosen one. He is, even through the turn.
Not if you like the new ones.
No, what are you talking about? Anakin is the chosen one. Lucas has said he is the chosen one. He brings balance.
Lucas said that, but Disney has control now.
He brings balance to the Force when he throws Palpatine down the hole. He is the chosen one.
Palpatine didn't die, according to the new ones.
He came back. They all come back. I think if there's one thing we've seen in Star Wars, if somebody falls in a hole, they're probably still alive. I think you insulted Darth Vader with that pick, and I think you definitely insulted Obi Wan Kenobi. Obi Wan Kenobi is the best Jedi of all time. Clearly, in my mind, it's Obi Wan. So to give him Kyle Shanahan, I think you're disrespecting him. I went with Kyle Juszczyk for Obi Wan Kenobi. Here's the reason: he has no weaknesses. Kyle Juszczyk has no weaknesses. Whatever you need him to do, you need him to play fullback, great. You need him to catch passes, great. You need him to block, great. Whatever you need. Oh, you need me to be the holder like he was against the Rams? No problem. I'll get the job done. That's Obi-Wan Kenobi. Oh, go fight General Grievous. Oh, great. I got to fight this machine guy with like 8 lightsabers that could spin him around like crazy. No problem. Hello there. Here I am fighting General Grievous. Oh, we need you to go kill your best friend, your brother, Anakin Skywalker on Mustafar. Go ahead, Obi. Take care of that, Obi-Wan. He chops off his arms and legs and leaves him for dead. Obi-Wan gets the job. Oh, we need you to protect the most important person in Star Wars. Do nothing on this desert planet except watch over this kid. No problem. I'll get it done. Obi-Wan Kenobi is Kyle Juszczyk.
But he's not the greatest of all time. Like, to me, Kyle is the great one, right? Plus, the big thing about Obi-Wan Kenobi is that he trains probably the 2 biggest characters in Star Wars. He trained Anakin / Darth Vader, and he trained Luke. So you got to have the kind of mentor-trainer type thing. And
Kyle doesn't develop quarterbacks. He doesn't develop anybody.
Well, he tries and kind of fails. And, well, what do we know about Luke at the end? He decides, screw it, I'm out. I'm just going to sit over here. But So let me continue with my whole quarterback. If Kyle Shanahan is Obi Wan Kenobi, so now you got to have the chosen one. Well, that's Brock Purdy. So he's Rey because Rey at the end is the hero, right? So who's the one that could be good, could be bad, was a mentor, but then kind of turned bad? Kylo Ren. That's Trey Lance. Maybe he comes back and saves the day at the end, like he did in the new movies. But really, he's a bad person.
But Trey Lance is not a bad person.
Well, he's, in terms of our franchise, the 49ers looking at him, he's no longer the savior. He was supposed to be the future of the Force. That's who Luke was training to be the future of the Force after him. And now he's probably not the future, just like Kylo Ren was not the future. And then that leaves Luke. So who's Luke? Who's the guy that's good, that went off and is on their own island in the middle of nowhere and decides they want any part of it? But it was a chosen one. Kirk Cousins. Right? Kirk Cousins is the Luke for Obi-Wan, right? If Kyle Shanahan is Obi-Wan, then Luke has to be Kirk. He trained him. He made him great. It's not the first, person, but he then went off to Minnesota in the middle. So I guess Minnesota is like the original Jedi Temple. That's where it's actually located.
I don't know about some of these picks. You got Jimmy Garoppolo and Kirk Cousins. Neither one are 49ers. So you kind of strayed here from the path.
Neither one are 49ers, but both of them are maybe probably two of the top 5 most talked about players amongst 49er fans.
True. Yeah, I guess I went a different route for Luke Skywalker. I went with Christian McCaffrey, right? Luke Skywalker was a humble farmer, just sitting around doing anything, just like Christian McCaffrey was a humble Panther, just toiling in NFL obscurity in Carolina. Then he gets brought into the world by Obi Wan Kenobi, and all of a sudden he kicks everybody's ass. He becomes a Jedi in like 20 minutes of screen time, basically, just like Christian McCaffrey learned the 49ers playbook like that. Came right in, started kicking everybody's ass. I mean, 2 seconds after Luke becomes a Jedi, he's defeating Darth Vader. So I went with Christian McCaffrey for Luke Skywalker.
Yeah, I just had a random epiphany that fits Jimmy maybe better. Jimmy Garoppolo is C-3PO.
Wait, don't ignore my Christian McCaffrey Luke Skywalker pick.
It's fine. There's nothing to say about it.
Because it's 100% correct.
No,
right?
It is not correct because you don't get to be a mercenary over there brought in. It's what led me to this because I was thinking, Christian McCaffrey, C-3PO, because C-3PO is always torn apart in the movies, right? I was like, he hasn't really been injured with the 49ers.
Yeah, don't even put that on him, man. Come on.
But then I had the thought that Jimmy Garoppolo is C-3PO because what is he? He's always injured. C-3PO is always torn apart. And C-3PO is annoying as hell. And we both got really annoyed with Jimmy Garoppolo every time he spoke because he never took blame for anything.
My C-3PO pick was Colton McKivitz because every time I see C-3PO in the movies, I'm like, why are you here? Like, what? Why is anyone putting their faith in you? What have you done throughout your time with this group for me to put my faith in you? And that's where I feel like we are with Colton McKivitz. Like, he is the starting right tackle. It is clear they didn't draft a single offensive lineman. I know they signed some unrestricted free agents, but like they have unequivocally said, we believe in Colton McKivitz. He's going to be the guy. And everything I have seen from him is like, I don't know why you're doing this, but yet he's there, just like C-3PO.
You could also make an argument for John Lynch because C-3PO talks a lot. John Lynch has to talk a lot, but C-3PO also a lot of times lacks the awareness of to not say something, to not let the cat out of the bag. And what does John Lynch do? He constantly says stuff that contradicts Kyle or clues us into what the actual truth is.
That's pretty good. That is a very, very good comparison. I'm just thinking, like, he's supposed to be like a translator droid, and I feel like
he's supposed to be uber smart, right?
The only time he ever translates something is in the new movies at the end. He translates the Sith language. Other than that, I feel like they never even use him as a translator.
He does sometimes, like, I think he translates a little bit with, what are they? The scavengers. He translates some with them. Doesn't he translate a little bit when they're with Jabba the Hutt in that area?
That's true. He does.
They use it a little bit, but It's definitely not utilized as much as they could have.
Yeah, that's fair. All right. This one I think might be a little contentious.
Yeah, you need to get a couple because I just used up like 5 of mine.
Okay. R2D2. I went with Fred Warner. And here's why. First of all, other than C3PO, R2D2 is the only one that appears in every movie except Solo. The only two characters that appear in every Star Wars movie except Solo are C3PO and R2D2. Fred Warner has missed one start in his entire career. He's always there. So that's first. Second of all, people are not going to want to admit this. R2D2 like never loses a fight. He's unbelievable. Whatever he needs to do in a situation to get out of it, he does. He's got a plan for that. He has a way out. That's Fred Warner. Like, you can't do anything to Fred Warner. He's going to find a way to beat you. If he needs to like pour an oil slick on the floor, he'll pour an oil slick on the floor. If he needs to use that little electric shocker that R2D2 has, he'll use the electric shocker. If he needs to hack the trash compactor, no problem. I hack the trash compactor. To me, R2D2 is Fred Warner. Incredibly dangerous, never loses. Will find a way to beat you.
I could not come up with an R2D2.
I just did.
Doesn't really fit all that well.
Why not?
Fred Warner's not a machine.
He kind of is.
I don't know. It just does not sit and fit very well. I don't
Plus,
like that one.
R2D2 flies with Luke in the X-Wing, making Luke better. I feel like Fred Warner makes everybody else on the defense better. I think it fits perfectly. I think you're way, way off.
Like I said, I couldn't come up with an R2D2. The best one I had was Hufanga because he kind of flies in and he did a lot of things. Like he tipped that interception to Deshaun Gibson. So he assists a lot, but I didn't think it was a good enough fit to write it down.
So, okay, I have a different one for Talanoa Hufanga, and that is Boba Fett. Because when you first see Boba Fett, you're like, oh my God, this dude is a badass. This dude is awesome, right? Vader's citing him like, no disintegrations. And you're like, this Boba Fett guy, like he never talks. He's a bounty hunter. He hauls in Han Solo. Like he is a badass. But then the longer you see him, you start to see some cracks. Like he gets defeated in Return of the Jedi because he gets bumped off the little hovercraft thing and falls into the Sarlacc. Like this badass guy who, by the way, has a jetpack somehow falls to what we thought was his doom. That seems a little weird. And that's like Talanoa Hufanga. He came out last year and was awesome, right? He beat the Rams with that pick 6. He was making interceptions all over the place. And then as the year went on, you started to see sometimes he cheated up a little too much. He got beat over the top. He blew some coverages. So there were some cracks there that started to form. So I went Boba Fett, Talanoa Hufanga.
Can I just say, like, Boba Fett might be the most overrated character in all of Star Wars? What has he ever done? Like, they've never actually shown him being great. Every time he's shown, he is not really doing anything of note. Same with, trying to remember his father's name.
Jango Fett.
Which is really him, because it's a clone.
Right.
But, yeah, Jango Fett. The whole Fett family. Because, he's supposed to be this all-time great bounty hunter, and he's tasked with killing literally a queen who's now, I guess, a senator, protected by Jedis. Oh, I'm going to hire that one out.
Yeah, he does farm that out.
It's like, what? Come on.
He does farm that out. That is a little weird. Like, you would think that one's not below your pay grade there. That's fair.
You can't be the greatest mercenary ever and hire other mercenaries to do your job for you.
If you were going to hire a Star Wars mercenary, would you hire Boba Fett or would you hire Cad Bane? I'd hire Cad Bane.
Yeah, probably. Like I said, Boba Fett, you're told that he's the greatest ever, but they never actually tell that story to show him as the greatest ever. The Boba Fett show is him somehow miraculously living, because of course they can't actually have a character die. They got to ruin the original movies just a little bit more. And he's kind of like a shell of himself. Like that show is terrible to me.
Well,
I struggled to watch it.
What, you fall into the mouth of a sarlacc, and we'll see if you're not a shell of yourself when you come out.
He should have just been dead. He didn't need that show.
It wasn't my favorite show, not gonna lie, but I did love seeing Cad Bane. Like that was all time good. When he shows up with Timothy Oliphant, I'm like, I think that's Cad Bane. Look at the hat. I think it's Cad Bane. Look at the hat. And then they show. I'm like, yeah. You can go on YouTube actually and watch audience reactions to that. It's really, really cool. I have spent time doing that because, that's just me. Okay. Let's see. Next one on my list. This one I didn't love, but I'm gonna go with it. Princess Leia. I went with Brandon Ayuk. Here's my justification. Princess Leia, I feel like, doesn't get enough credit, right? One, she's a princess. Two, she's a general in the resistance. And three, she has the force. She has force powers. When they show her training with Luke, she defeats Luke. So I feel like she doesn't get enough credit for everything that she does. And I feel like that's Brandon Ayuk. Brandon Ayuk can do the end arounds like Debo. Maybe not as good, but he can still be really effective on them. He can get open deep. He can get open short. He's got pretty good hands most of the time. I feel like Princess Leia, Brandon Ayuk, like Leia is a Skywalker. She doesn't get credit for that. Brandon Ayuk is a damn good wide receiver, and just through circumstance, he hasn't been able to show all that he can do, just like Leia stopped the force training because she was worried about what would happen if she continued that journey. What do you think?
I think that's okay. I didn't pick a Leia because I didn't want to do that to anybody, I guess.
What? What are you doing to somebody?
Female, male thing. I didn't
Who
get
cares?
to that one. But if Kyle Shanahan is Obi-Wan, then I think it fits because when Brandon Ayuk was in the doghouse, he was in turmoil. His life could end. He could have reached out to Obi-Wan / Kyle Shanahan and said, help me, Obi-Wan. You're my only hope. See, I'm right.
I went with Princess Leia and Brandon Ayuk. I like Leia. Leia's awesome. And what they did, what was it at the end of Rogue One, where they have her after she had passed away, and they'd have her, and she just says hope, and you're like, oh my god, it was so good. Okay, let's see. I have a couple left. This one was tough.
I have two.
Okay, you do one then, because I feel like I've been doing a bunch.
Okay, so we haven't gotten to George Kittle yet.
Correct.
That is Chewy. I think, to me, that's almost the strongest relationship pick for me. Kittle is big, strong, formidable, but he's also really loud. And Chewy is really loud. He's really opinionated. He weighs in on everything. He gets really upset. We know George Kittle went after you because how dare you say that he might not be around in 2 years.
Yeah, even though Matt Barrow said the same thing a couple weeks later.
Right. So to me, George Kittle is Chewbacca. And like I said, I think that's like the best connection.
You're 1,000% right. That is the perfect. That is the best one out of all of them. If you mess with him, he will rip your arms off, much like Chewbacca will if you beat him in like the holographic chess thing. Yep. I absolutely get it. I don't even no notes. Like that's yes. There are some that are just so obvious. Chewbacca, George Kittle, done and done. Why can Han understand him, by the way? Is that ever explained?
No, it's never explained.
Is he the only one that can understand him?
Yep.
Great. Sure. Space magic. Why not? Okay.
He understands them in Solo, the movie. Like when they meet, he's able to understand them somehow.
He speaks Wookiee, huh? All right. Speaking of Han Solo, this one I didn't love, but I'm going with it anyway. And I went Nick Bosa. And here's why. Han eventually is a Jedi. Excuse me, not a Jedi, a general in the Republic. But like it takes him a really long time to buy in. He doesn't just like go along with it, right? In fact, at the end of A New Hope, he goes off and does his own thing and then all of a sudden comes back. And I feel like that's Nick Bosa, right? Like he didn't do all the team activities in the off season. He's got his program. He's got his thing. He goes off and takes care of his business. And then when he comes back, he kicks ass. So I feel like I went Han Solo, Nick Bosa.
So that was who I had as Han Solo. I didn't write it down because I didn't think it was perfect enough. and I didn't come up with anybody that fit Nick Bosa great. My reasoning for Nick Bosa was, Han Solo, I think, is unquestionably kind of seen as like this leader. He's always kind of grouping everybody together, getting everybody organized. And I think that's Nick Bosa for our defense. But then also, what does Han Solo always brag about?
Making the Kessel Run in 10 parsecs or whatever it
And
was.
Nick Bosa is an edge rusher trying to get sacks as fast as he possibly can. So that was like the best like fit I had for Han Solo. But and it was weird. Like I had this idea. Hey, let's pick players for Star Wars since we're recording on May the 4th. And then I sat down and I was like, oh, there's not a great pick for this. There isn't an obvious choice. I think we have a weird team because, like I said, we don't have this obvious like elder statesman mentor. We don't have a lot of those normal things. I feel like we got a lot of very similar people.
Plus, I feel like Nick Bosa would shoot first, right? Han shot first. That's the whole thing with Star Wars. Like Nick Bosa is not going to wait around for you. He's going to initiate, and he's going to defeat you.
Yeah, that's certainly true. So my last one, I have Kyle Juszczyk, and I have him as the Mandalorian because he has all these gadgets. He's capable of doing all these things. He kind of flies around and is all over the galaxy in the show. Yet he's not part of the bigger story. Kyle Juszczyk, I think he's important, but he's also, I think his role in the last few years has become not so important. He's not part of the bigger story. I don't think he's truly as valuable as what we think these days.
That's interesting. But then they go and draft Braden Willis, and I feel like he's the Juice replacement. So I feel like they spent a pick on replacing him, so he must have some value.
Yeah, he has some value. I'm not saying he's invaluable, or not valuable. I shouldn't say invaluable. That's confusing as hell.
Right.
But to me, I think a lot of 49er fans think he's like uber important. And if they didn't have his role in the offense would crater. I think the offense has evolved past that point.
Yes, I agree with you. I think because of Debo and the versatility that he has, and because of Christian McCaffrey and the fact that they could line him up anywhere, I agree with you. Not to say he's not important, because he absolutely is, especially when he was the one like telling Jimmy Garoppolo, helping him pick out the freaking defenses and stuff. Like he absolutely is, but it's not the same as when he first arrived. I totally agree with you. And I think
when he first arrived, the offense needed gimmicks to work. They needed that tight end leak out. They needed Juszczyk going down the sideline because they didn't have the wide receivers that were good enough to truly make a difference. Now I think the rest of the supporting cast has arrived with Ayuk and Debo, like you said, and obviously McCaffrey helps. But even before McCaffrey, I feel like Juszczyk's role is kind of diminished, and it's to the point where, yes, it helps. It's nice to have him, but it's not something that's absolutely needed in this offense anymore.
I've always described a fullback as a first-class plane ticket. If you can afford it, awesome. But if there's any sort of money crunch, the first thing to go is the first-class ticket. And I feel like Juice there's no way he's signing another contract with the 49ers. Granted, that's not exactly a bold statement given his age, but I agree with you. I think where the offense is, and I think with what he does now, I think that they think that they can find someone that can pretty much do what he does, which is why I think they spent a pick on Braden Willis.
Yeah, I would agree. I think what Juice brought that was unique, you can find people who can be a great blocking fullback. That's not difficult, and that's why teams don't invest in it anymore, because you can find people that are capable of knowing where the hole is, reading where the defense is, and going and hitting somebody in the chest. It's everything else he brought, the receiving capabilities. But like I said, that's back when the offense needed those gimmicks to operate. They don't need it anymore, which is why we haven't seen, like last year, Juice didn't really do a whole lot offensively in terms of actual numbers.
So is there anyone that we didn't get to, either Star Wars character? I mean, there's obviously Star Wars characters we didn't get to, but like big ones that you thought we should have, and 49ers that we didn't do anything with Eric Armstead. He's obviously the longest tenured 49er now. We didn't do anything with Mooney Ward, but I don't know, like if I had to pick someone for Mooney Ward, maybe I would go Lando, because Lando like always looks good. He looks like he's got it on lockdown, and like Charvarius Ward kind of plays the game the same way. Like he never is out of position. He never looks bad. Lando also, like, comes back and helps them out in the end ultimately. But it's not a great match, I admit.
Yeah. Like I said, I sat down and when I was doing this, I was like, there's nobody to, like, I tried to think of a Mace Windu. Who's the person that used to be here that kind of got killed off? And I couldn't come up with one. I don't
Yeah.
feel there's a lot of Star Wars characters that I wanted because that's where I started. I said, okay, here's the Star Wars characters I want to try to figure out. Oh, I can't think of anybody that fits well enough.
Right. You don't want to just jam somebody together with
Right.
someone that doesn't really match. The only character or the character we didn't get to is my favorite Star Wars character of all time is Ahsoka Tano. Love Ahsoka Tano, but I don't know who to match. Maybe if I had to pick one, I would say Trey Lance because I don't know how it's going to end with Ahsoka. Like, what are they going to? First, it was how does she survive Order 66? And then you think it's because she leaves the Jedi Order. When then eventually we found out that that wasn't the case. She still had to survive it. And now it's like she's going to get her own show. She's chasing down Admiral Thrawn. I don't know what I don't know how that's going to all turn out. And so the same thing with Trey Lance, like tons of potential, could be really cool, but I have no idea how the story ends.
So you went Kyle Shanahan as Palpatine, right?
Yes.
So if you have Kyle Shanahan as Palpatine, I guess the logical choices would then be Brock Purdy as Darth Vader / Anakin, which makes Trey Lance a one of the young Padawans.
Oh,
Brock comes in and destroys.
Master Skywalker. There's too many of them.
Right?
So,
That fits.
yeah, I guess. I mean, be mean to the. I feel like he's just kind of forgiven for that too. Like he slaughters the kids, and it's like, oh, he threw the Emperor down the hole, so now everything's good. It's like he kind of did a lot of horrible stuff.
Yeah, like there's a lot of I think it's because they knew Darth. Like if they came out in the order that they actually take place chronologically in terms of in the story chronologically,
Right.
I think he would be viewed differently because you would have started with episode 1, 2, and 3, and he would have been the most hated person ever for killing the children at the end of 3.
Mm.
But instead, it came out 4, 5, 6, where it's like, oh my God, this guy's so cool. He's the bad guy, but he's cool. Oh, hey, look, he's the savior. That's awesome. And so I think that part of that is just the order of release.
So my son just watched all the movies. And before we started, we would watch them every Friday. And before we started, I was like, what order should we go in? Because I was wondering, like, maybe we should watch just in order of like the actual, like, start with episode 1, episode 2, and just go that way so that he doesn't know what happens with Anakin. But my thinking was, if we start with like the newer movies and they look pretty and all that stuff, and then all of a sudden we go to episode 4 that's, super old
Yeah.
and looks much, much different, he might just like zone out. And so what I did was we went in the original order: 4, 5, and 6, 1, 2, 3, 7, 8, 9.
Yeah. And you could have done without 7, 8, 9.
I don't know why you dislike those movies so much.
Because they destroy the story of the first ones. You even said it. George Lucas said Anakin brings balance to the Force.
He
If
does.
7, 8, 9 happen, that is not true.
Why not?
Because Rey and Palpatine brings balance to the Force. Because it's Rey defeating her grandfather, killing him, no longer having the dark side, and her taking the name Skywalker to bring balance to the Force.
No, just because Anakin brought balance to the Force doesn't mean that there could never be evil again. I don't think that's what that means. I don't think one affects the other in any way. He did bring balance to the Force for a time, and then it became unbalanced again.
Sure.
Her taking the name Skywalker at the end makes no sense.
None of it does.
Because I thought like a message of the movie is like, hey, it's not where you start, right? Ben Solo starts off as Ben Solo. He's Han and Leia's kid and then turns evil. His being a Solo and a Skywalker doesn't stop him from turning evil. Just like even though Rey is a Palpatine, it doesn't mean she's evil. She's actually good. So I didn't think she should have taken the name Skywalker at the end of the movie. That didn't make any sense to me.
2 out of 3 of the Skywalkers ended up being evil for quite a long time. doing as much evil as anybody other than the Emperor. Kylo
Yeah,
Ren, or Ben, who is a Skywalker, even though his last name is Solo. Like, yeah. And then
right.
obviously you have Darth.
So was a weird thing. I remember watching in theaters, and by the time the new movies came out, I was a dad. And so when Kylo Ren stabs Han, and Han just puts his hand on the side of his son's face
Yeah,
before
and
he falls,
forgives him.
that hit me
Yeah.
hard. Like I never related to a movie like that before. I was like, oh, that was bad. And of course, I was sad that Han Solo, just got offed.
Yeah, so that movie came out, I think, while my wife was pregnant or like when we first started trying or something. So it kind of hit different because I was becoming a father.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Definitely different. We didn't do Finn, we didn't do Poe, we didn't do like any of the new people, really.
Yeah, I mean, it is what it is. Uh, we also didn't do Liam Neeson.
Liam Neeson, Qui-Gon Jinn,
Neeson. Oh, why did I say Nelson? Yeah, we didn't do Qui Gon.
underrated Jedi,
Darth
by the way.
Maul. I tried to think of Darth Maul. Like, I did think of a Darth Maul, but I thought it was too mean.
Oh no. Do I even want to ask? Am I gonna have to edit this out later?
It's Jason Verrett because he's constantly split in half.
Oh yeah, that's
Yeah,
mean.
so it's too mean. I
Yeah,
said
it's a
it
good thing you
anyways.
didn't
But
say it though.
yeah, exactly. I didn't say it. What are you talking about?
By the way, so I didn't mention this earlier when we were talking about Ahsoka. I always thought this was so cool. So back in the day, I was at NBC Sports Radio and I was doing a baseball segment. I wasn't hosting, I was producing at the time. Eric Casilius was hosting, and it was in October, which was when Comic-Con was, or September, October, around there. And we were doing a baseball segment, and we had David Eckstein on, former World Series MVP. We were talking about
Mm-hmm.
baseball, and the host Eric was making fun of me because I was going to Comic-Con, and he was like, "Oh, you're such a nerd," blah blah blah. And so he says to David Eckstein, "My producer's going to Comic-Con. What's your favorite like comic character of all time?" And he says, "Ahsoka Tano, without a doubt." Do you know why?
I do not know why. No.
Because his wife, Ashley Eckstein, is the voice of Ahsoka Tano.
Ah,
And I was like, oh my God. I was geeking out when that came out. And when we got off the air, he was like, hey, what's your name? I'll give my wife your name. If you go to Comic-Con and you go see her, I'll tell her to like hang out with you, talk with you, like yada, yada, hook you up. So I was like, awesome. So we got to Comic-Con, but there were so many people around her. I could not get to her. And I like wanted to wait, but the people I was with didn't really want to wait. Plus, I don't know if they believed me. So we never actually like got to meet her. I would love to meet her because number one, she's awesome. And number two, Ahsoka's my favorite character. But that's my Ashley Eckstein, David Eckstein story.
I can't believe you left your basement and actually went to Comic Con. You have not
Well,
been to an NFL game, but you have
right.
been to Comic Con.
And I would go to Comic-Con again before I would go to an NFL game, without question. Comic-Con was awesome. It was so cool to see all the people there, and like they're all in costume, and it's not just like, oh, a Superman, a Batman. Like there are some of those, but some of them are like really niche characters, like small characters from games or stories, and you're like, damn, that's awesome. I like that character too. It was the best.
I would love to go to one, but I have not been.
Well, there you go. Maybe we need to do a Comic-Con meetup.
Sure.
I
I'm
would
down.
absolutely do that. We'll go to New York. If there's one in New York that you can get tickets to, it's not bad. Hop on the train. I'll get on the train. We'll go to New
There's a
York.
Pittsburgh one.
Well, I mean, they're
Yeah, it's
everywhere
not going
now.
to be this. Yeah, it's not
The
to the
big
same
ones.
level. Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, that's our Star Wars May the 4th episode. May the 4th be with you. Please like and subscribe to the YouTube channel as well. And also, if you're listening to this on Thursday tonight, I am doing a live Zoom chat for all my patrons on the Patreon page, Gold Standard 49ers Podcast Network. It's going to be 30 minutes, 45 minutes. We'll talk about the Niners. We'll talk about Star Wars. We'll talk about whatever you want. But if you're so inclined, please go, and it'll be a ton of fun. I know you're going to be there, Levin, right? Right?
You mean there as in work?
Boo. Fine. But anyway, I'm going to try and do that once a month just because I think it'll be a cool, fun thing. So we'll really share some stuff, to quote Vince Vaughn. Anyway, I hope you join us for that. Levin, I hope you have a fantastic weekend. Got any big plans?
I'm just counting down the days to what we got schedule released next Thursday.
Yeah, we do. May 11th is the schedule release. We got OTAs coming up at the end of the month. There's a lot to look forward to
Yeah,
in May. More than you
unfortunately, we
think.
won't be able to talk about the schedule because it will not be out by the time we record.
Right.
Because I think it comes out like in the evening, correct?
Yeah, usually they do like a
It's
prime
like
time
3
thing.
p.m. or 4 p.m. or Eastern. It's middle of the day, I think, normally for West
Also,
Coast
I
folks,
think
not
the
us.
first rookie minicamp is tomorrow. I think
Okay.
there's rookie minicamp tomorrow and then a week from now also. So I'm sure we'll get some Jake Moody updates. Oh boy, kicker updates. That's the two things for the 49ers preseason is going to be kicker updates and quarterback updates. Those will be the two things. But anyway, have a good weekend, Levin. Have a good weekend, everybody. We'll talk to you.